Hello, welcome along to the Tasting Hour. I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary.
In this series of podcasts, we're going to be doing quite a bit around the cigar industry and also whiskies and other pairings.
And quite a lot of other spirits, from brandy and rums in particular, but also non-alcoholic things, because there's a lot of non-drinkers out there, and so we'll have some coffee tastings and tea tastings in particular, and maybe some other interesting items that you wouldn't normally associate with smoking.
Indeed. That's the other thing. This whole idea of these podcasts is basically to hopefully educate you and some enjoyment along the way, I would like to say. On that note, let's have a look at what cigars we've got. Gary, what are you going with today?
I'm starting today with a Sheraton. It's a Petit Corona, nice, light, easy smoke.
And I'm going to go with one of my favorites at the moment, which, if anybody knows me, won't surprise you too much, is the Metallica M81 Blackened. What cut are you going for, Gary?
I'm starting with a traditional guillotine cut, which in most shops and places is probably what you'll be offered. And I think for most beginners, it's probably a good thing to start on. You learn how to deal with the fact that every cigar, hand-rolled cigar, has got a wrapper which twirls around and is kept in place by the cap. And you need to understand the relationship of the cap and the cigar.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that's what most people start on. I'm going for a V cut, which ironically is where I started. So I think it's one of those things, your preferences get set very early and when you're on your cigar journey. Because I always started with a V, that is where my preference lies. Although it is quite nice to cut it once in a while as a guillotine cut or even a punch cut, which we might do at some point.
Exactly. I mean, I think your preference is going to be your own choice. All we're trying to do is help you understand that there's a huge choice of preferences that you might need to want to follow.
Yeah, also, we hope to challenge you a little bit, I think. We all do have preconceptions, especially about cigars. I was always a Cuban snob. I still am a Cuban snob, but my views over the last probably 2 years have definitely started to change. As I said, at the moment, this is one of my favorite cigars, and it is a New World cigar. So as long as you're open to change or even just trying things, I'm hoping that's what this series will do for you.
Well, I hope so, because trying new things out is very much, it's something that you need to do. We do it in other things like wine or various types of whiskies. And the more you try, the more there'll be things that you don't like, but there'll be lots of things you enjoy, and you can make your own list, because no single person's list is the perfect one.
Exactly, and I think actually you've touched a point there very early on, actually, which is a good one. The things you don't like, that's almost as important, if not more important, than the things you do like, because you'll learn very quickly where you want your direction of your choices to go.
And you'll also probably find that actually as you go on your journey, these will also change as you find new cigars, and there's a lot of new cigars out there.
There really are. On that note, the other part of this series, we're going to be doing interviews. Today's interview is actually with Michal from Davidoff, which is a very good, I do mean, and I'm biased, it's a very good chat. Here's a little teaser for you.
In 1989, the relationship broke down completely, with Davidoff taking all production over to the Dominican Republic, and famously with the legend that's possibly been enhanced over the years of publicly burning 130,000 plus cigars in the streets of Havana as a protest, because of the fact that this compromise in quality.
So there you go, 130,000 cigars. That's horrible. You worked it out. How much is that, you reckon, in today's value?
Well, if you took an idea that the average Cuban is probably somewhere in the region of £15 a stick in current prices, that's a cost. That means that amount, which is a very large lorry, is 2 million.
That's £2 million worth of cigars at cost. So you think about that as retail. I mean,
it's an awful lot of money.
You're talking 5-6 million by the time you...
And the rest.
Yeah. That made me want to cry. I'm not going to lie. That made me want to cry.
Yep, that's very well be, but that was the strength of what Zeno felt at the time. And as we've discussed privately many times, the quality control of Cubans is not there and hasn't been for a long time. Obviously, a very long time. I've certainly felt it being in the retail business.
Yeah. On that note, actually, that's a very good point. There'll be more of that interview later on. In fact, we're going to play that interview in its entirety in a little bit for you, so stay tuned. But on that point, a bit about us, really. Gary, do you want to introduce yourself to...
Yeah. After leaving school, I spent 30 years in the hospitality industry and then decided for a change of style and speed of life. And effectively, I've moved into the retail, transferred my capabilities into the retail section. And for the last 19 years, I've owned a tobacco and spirit shop in England.
Yep, me, right. Here's a bit of a complicated one, really. You probably know me, or hopefully most of you will know me, from a series I do on TikTok and other platforms called Thursday Night Smokes. That is partly where a lot of my love for the cigar industry and, well, cigars in general has come from. I also do a little bit on there, which is called the Infinity Dram, which is something we will discuss in future episodes, because I think that's very important for teaching you how blends and stuff work. Bit more about my history is I used to make TV shows for a living, which is why we have this sort of setup. I'm doing it as it should be done, basically. That's my view. So I apologize in advance for being very technically minded, and hopefully it's something you'll all enjoy the look of. So there you go, that's me. On that note, how are you finding your cigar this early?
Well, Sheraton's a light medium smoke. Nicaragua, Dominican, if I remember rightly. I'm probably wrong.
Well, if you are, somebody can drop a comment and correct us.
Yeah.
And then we'll just ignore them.
It's a light smoke. It's a perfect for a beginner in the sense that it's got some taste. What I find is that it has some taste, but not too much. It has a light touch, which means even if you're not into smoking, and most people don't smoke, you're going to be able to suffer probably smoking most of it. The other side of it is it also has enough taste that if you're being accompanied by somebody who's been smoking cigars for much longer, they're not going to feel as if they're smoking fresh air.
Yeah, it's one of those cigars. By the way, he doesn't mean that you're suffered the smoking. He doesn't mean that. It's one of those cigars. I've had boxes of those over the years, and I've smoked since I was... Yeah, I am going to admit, since I was 15, which technically isn't right in the UK, but anyway. And I have smoked boxes and boxes of those. So as a seasoned cigar smoker, it is still one to come back to, which I do think is important to find a cigar that you can come back to.
Yes, I mean, one of the things I've found owning the shop for the last 19 years is that a cigar is not just a bunch of tobaccos wrapped together and wrapped up. There's a whole science, and having come out of hospitality, where I was dealing with wine quite a bit, you realise that there's a whole different spectrum of different tastes and values all the time. And this is a perfect morning smoke. For a lot of people, as your taste buds change during the day, it's too light for the late afternoon, early evening.
Yes, if you've had a meal, like your evening meal, say you've had steak and chips, just for an example, that's not going to do it for you. You're not going to taste it.
No, if you haven't smoked during the day, you might actually as a preamble prior to your meal. But it's rather like having once you've had the red wine, you can go back to white wine, but you're just drinking alcohol at that point.
Yeah, see, that's another interesting discussion point, because there are quite a few of my friends who smoke cigars, and they will smoke cigars in certain orders, and I'm always like, you don't want to do that. That the cigar you're going for is quite a strong cigar, and yet your next cigar's really light. So you're missing the floral notes that are on that cigar that you've gone for second, whereas the first cigar you went for had a lot of peppery notes. If you've done them the other way around, your palate will pick up those floral notes, and then when you go to the peppery notes, you'll get that, and it'd be quite a bit, it'd be an improvement. It rises up the experience. Yeah. Whereas if you go the other way, you just don't even notice.
And yes, I find that our palate is very fresh in the mornings. And so you need something lighter to taste it. You would do it with a coffee, you would do it with some alcohol, and I think the same applies to a cigar. As you gradually assault your senses with different tastes during the day, you require something a little bit more. In coffee, for example, you can end up late evening having a very strong, or late afternoon, a nice strong Americano, moving on to an espresso. You can work the same way with tobacco.
Yes. And I think that's sort of the education we're hoping to provide to people. A lot of people, unless you are shown or in a group of people who do this, you don't realize some errors that you're going to be making that aren't necessarily wrong, but they're just not there they're not helping your enjoyment. You're missing a couple of steps.
I think so. I mean, if I go right back to when I was first tasting the old cigar a long time ago, they were very mild Dutch cigars, and I just smoked them. I was 18, 19 at the time, and which is back in the 70s, and that's all you know. And then you try a Cuban, and it's probably in the evening, and like most things, it would have been probably a Monte Cristo, probably maybe a Partagas, but I don't remember that. Certainly Monte Cristo, and maybe the next one you have is Romeo and Juliet, but at a different time of day, and you don't get the same taste from it.
Changing the subject slightly, or rather my side of this subject, the blackened cigar I'm smoking tonight, it's very sort of a leathery feel on, because it's a Maduro wrapper, so it's got a nice sort of leathery, oily feel on that wrapper. It does pair very well with the coffee I'm picking tonight, because there are sort of chocolate and coffee notes in the cigar, but I do wonder sometimes, am I picking up the coffee notes because I'm having a coffee and it's just lingering on the palate a bit more? And therefore the cigar is actually enhancing that note as opposed to generating that note.
Well, I think the answer to that will turn up in a few programs' time, maybe, where we shall actually try some ideas out with various cigars.
I think, as you said, that is a cigar you can pretty much have any time of day and you'll get away with it. This is, although I have done it, it's not really a morning cigar. I have had this for breakfast before now, though, and I very, very thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's the opposite end of it. You want that extreme kick to start your day off. It's like having an energy drink in that regard.
Possibly, but that's you referring to your own experience of quite a number of years. And I think that's the point. I sometimes tried some cigars at midday or various things, but I'm in that mood to have that stronger smoke.
Yeah.
I feel like it, and I'm rejecting the lighter smokes. Another day it's completely arrived down, even sometimes when I come home after work.
That's a very good point. When you talk about sort of cigars like that, there are days when your palate really does determine what you want. And it's actually one of the reasons I always tend to carry one of these around with me, because I don't know what I want. Until the moment I decide I'm going to have a cigar, I don't really know what I want. So having a selection of cigars with you at that time does very much determine how you're going to feel and how you're going to smoke and what you're going to enjoy.
And I think that's a very important point that people need to understand. It's not about necessarily what you are recommended, because that's not necessarily what you feel like at that moment in time. It has to be your own decision. That will come to you the more you're able to smoke and the more you're able to try. You will get, as you said earlier, you're going to get those rejects because that wasn't particularly nice. Yeah. But that could be only about that particular point in time. You could come back to it later and actually find it's a completely different
I was going to say, I would always, in cigars that I have smoked before where I've not enjoyed them, especially if it's the first time I'm trying it, I would always give it a second or maybe even a third go. If I don't like it when I'm on that third attempt, then I probably will never have it again. But the second attempt, if it's like, oh, actually, that now actually pairs with that whiskey, that actually now works. Whereas if I had it with coffee and it didn't, if you see what I mean, as you say, it's very much your pairing and your mood at that moment.
100%. I always smoke a new cigar twice. And then I might release it to the shop. It allows me then to categorize it, same as I would do in the catering, in hospitality with wines. And then I'm asking questions of the customer in front of me. What sort of things do you like? What sort of things do you go through? And then my suggestions are a range of ideas that they should then explore.
Yeah. See, this is where you and I, this is what I actually like about this podcast idea of ours. We come at it from two opposite ends. You're the retail side of this. I'm the consumer side of this. Mainly because I just like to smoke cigars. You're doing it as a business. So therefore your take on what we're doing is quite different. And that is what I'm hoping is going to come across in this series of what we do. People are going to get both sides of the story and be able to make an informed decision. And on that note, we're going to enjoy these cigars a little bit more. I think it's time for our interview with Davidoff. So here's the rest of that interview with Michael. I hope you enjoy it. I have to admit, it certainly did open my eyes. Okay, so welcome to the first interview of the Tasting Hour. I'm joined by Michael from Davidoff. Hello, Michael. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Glad to be here. Lovely weather.
Yeah.
Enjoying a fantastic cigar.
That is the whole point of this chat, really. Funny enough, it is about this brand of cigars, which I know is very personal to you as you do work for them. On that note, why do you think Davidoff is so important and so well recognized in this country?
I think in general, Davidoff as a brand represents strong ideals. So I think it's got a history in the sense of passage of time, but also his story. It's related to a man, Zino Davidoff. And I think the combination of those two factors make it stand out as a brand. It's constant pushing on quality control, innovation, aspects of such as smoking consistency, blend innovation. And I think all of these things, I think that sort of dual tradition and innovation in one bundle, I think makes Davidoff an important player, not just in the UK market and cigar world, but globally, I feel. Yeah,
I mean, as you were saying, in terms of innovation, you've got the whole Zino range, which is quite a new range that's come out, which is much more, I want to say slightly lower end in terms of budget wise. It's not the traditional like high price value that some Davidoffs do reach. It is more that everyday cigar that they've tried to do.
I think there's a realization that, you know, times are changing. It's not just the fact that we don't necessarily have 3 hours anymore to enjoy a Churchill by the fireplace on a leather couch or smoking in the office, going even further back.
Yes.
The reality is that, we have less time. This country in particular is, you add the factor of the weather.
Yes. I mean,
not necessarily today
being a great example of it's not like this most of the time.
But quite often you find that, you've got half an hour outside before it gets too cold. You've got half an hour to enjoy your cigar before you've got a meeting, or you have to make supper for the kids, or your wife's going to nag you to do something or other. So time is of the essence, weather is of the essence, and I think that move towards smaller sized cigars. And I would say within the Zino range, we have the concept of the go-to cigar.
Yeah.
So the blend is being thought out to be more approachable, I would say.
So it's a good level. It's actually a good entry level cigar then, isn't it?
It's a good entry level cigar. It's a dependable cigar for those who smoke more. I wouldn't say it's not a drop in quality. It's a different approach to a quality. It's a quality that's suited for that type of palate.
Yeah.
So that takes just as much thought, understanding of that type of person, that profile and that palate, to come up with a blend that's going to work for them. It's not just a drop in quality. Yeah. And I think that's key about the Zino. And I think it's starting to pick up. And you look at the formats, short torpedo, half Corona. Obviously there's the Toro and the Gordas, which are slightly bigger cigars. But that, the heavy reliance are on those shorter, quick smokes with the options of the pre-cut in the half Corona.
Yes.
You don't have to have everything. You can just pick up a tin and you just need a lighter, and you don't need all the accoutrements that go with everything,
Well, that is half the fun. As a cigar smoker, I have to admit, it's that ritual of cutting the cigar, picking a cigar, and lighting it. But
absolutely.
You're right though, in this world where the time is an issue, actually taking one of those steps away is brilliant.
Yeah. And I think, again, we come back to what we started with, is this understanding, I think, that Davidoff has, that it's a changing world. We still have the traditionalists who have humidors at home, who have a collection of cutters, who enjoy having a collection of lighters, who age their cigars, clean their cigars, envisage when they're going to smoke that cigar for a special occasion. But at the same time, there's a different category of cigar smokers. And it's not just necessarily a younger new generation.
I was going to say, I think that is part of what the new generation is more about as well. There are a lot more cigar smokers coming in 23 and up, that's when they're now getting into cigars, because they actually want to feel almost that sort of moment to take a step back and breathe, and they see cigars as a way of doing it.
Yeah.
I know personally that's why I've always done it.
Yeah.
Because it makes you stop.
Absolutely. I think mindfulness, I mean, in the larger sense of it, I think cigars comes under that. It's being self-aware. It's taking the time to enjoy a moment, either to yourself or within company of like-minded people, where you can just relax and enjoy the moment, the time.
Yes.
So, as we like to say at Davidoff, it's time beautifully filled. And that's a great way of plugging your tagline.
Yeah,
but
that's a good statement.
that's, you know, I think it's to do with, you know, self-awareness and self-knowledge and self-gratification and taking care of self. And I think a lot of men in this day and age, it is one way that they can.
It is something I feel is really lacking with men. They don't. They're always under the pressure. They're always feeling they got to fill every moment. And taking that time away actually ultimately makes you more productive anyway.
Yeah.
Because it gives you that respite to think problems through.
Yeah.
The amount of times I was taught, right, you do this, now go away and don't think about it for a couple of days.
Yeah.
You'll come back to it, and all of a sudden it just snaps and it works.
Absolutely.
And the cigars give me that time away to make me stop.
Moment of reflection, I think, is
In terms of other innovations, obviously you got the Plasencia range.
Yeah, so we distribute the Plasencia range within the UK. Another fantastic brand. Obviously a brand that historically, one of the Cuban families that left post-revolution, produced cigars for virtually everybody else on the planet for years and years. Nicaragua, Honduras, having to move because of different revolutions and finally have settled down back in Nicaragua, but still have the production with Honduras as well. But because of years of production for other brands, premium cigars, and being experts in farming and the production side of tobacco,
picking the recipes that each brand is using.
Exactly. Understanding what makes a cigar work, what the profile of people are looking for in a cigar. And I think that, you know, when finally in 2017, Nestor Jr. said, let's make cigars. You know, we have all this knowledge, this experience, and we have the best product and produce in the world. And I think they've just shown since then that as far as innovation of blend, understanding the concept of terroir, innovation in the shapes, the construction.
Yeah, I mean,
the hexagon is fantastic.
I was about to say, actually, that hexagon one is an interesting smoke. I mean, box press cigars do give you a different experience. Obviously, traditional cigars is what everybody's used to, but that hexagon one really does change the palate.
Yeah, it's as you say, box press. You're going to get that slightly more intense smoke, and I think that the exploration into the hexagonal shape. And again, there's a thought behind it. It's not just done as a gimmick. It's linked to the fact that this is a natural shape that we find produced by Mother Nature, beehives.
Exactly.
So there's a thought process gone into it. And then the fact that you add in the reality that a box press gives you that change in the way that the cigar smokes.
And that's it. I mean, obviously, with box press, what tends to happen is there's slightly less filler in it, because obviously they need to make sure they can get the shape. Whereas the hexagon actually gives you more. So that's almost the reverse. So you do end up with that stronger sort of approach to it, which I
find what's interesting about the evolution of the hexagon is obviously it starts off with the tight, because it's held by its box press. But as you get through it and the cigar warms up, it starts to release. Yeah. And it just helps. I think it assists in that release of flavor.
Yeah, it's like the the Solomonos shape, isn't it? Which is the one that's rolled tight up both ends.
Yeah, double figurado.
Yeah, it's like that in terms of innovation, where you have to watch when you light one of those up. It's that initial build into where you're going.
Yeah.
The hexagonal one does that almost straight away, but just expands even more.
Yeah, and again, I think it's coming back to understanding the product of the cigar, really, in depth, and understanding that it's a journey, it's an experience between the aficionado and the cigar, and that moment spent together is a journey. And if you can find ways of making that journey more interesting, then all the better. And that's why I think a lot of the innovation that Plasencia are doing, and Davidoff as well, it's not gimmick innovation. It's not just like, what can we roll out that makes this cigar different? It's not blue tobacco, or
it's
don't
give them ideas.
Don't
give them ideas.
It's thought out, and it's there to improve and give variety and change and difference and challenge the smoker to pushing themselves with their palate and exploring that new experience and opening new doors.
Actually, now that you mentioned palate, this is a good time to change the subject slightly. What's your ideal pairing with a cigar, and why? Personally, I would tend to go for whiskey, as most people know.
My personal pairing favourites, I'm going to give you a really poor answer. It really depends on what I'm smoking, when I'm smoking it, what I'm looking for in the pairing. A pairing with one specific wine or spirit or beer or champagne or iced tea, can bring out the sweetness of a cigar, and it works with it. It assists, it accompanies a cigar. Another combination with a different type of cigar is going to juxtapose it. It's going to fight against it, and you're going to get a struggle that you're looking for within that pairing. So depending on what you're looking for, if you want amplification, accompanying, and what you're trying to push forward. The other thing is the cigar can also play the role of being the pairer to the spirit.
Yes, very much so.
So and again, coming back to what we were just talking about, it just opens these possibilities of enjoyment of the moment, of your journey with your cigar.
And as you say, it's also the company you're with as well, because the way your pairing works is what you're going to be talking about with somebody, and then that gives you a different experience with the cigar that you weren't expecting anyway.
Absolutely.
Because they give you a point of view, you go, well, actually, I haven't thought of that.
Absolutely.
I'll try that next time round. And that's the thing I love about cigars. It is all about that shared experience.
Yeah. The amazing power of preconception, of course. If we all know it, we read a review of a cigar before, and then we look for those flavors or those sensations, and we tend to find them somehow. And it's the same with if somebody says you should try this cigar with that, you tend to find that you will enjoy it at first.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that moving on a little bit, but I think that brings us to this idea of understanding self. We're coming back. We talked a little bit about what the cigar acting is, that tool of mindfulness for ourselves, but it also helps us understand ourselves. So how do you enjoy a cigar, for example? Like,
it's an interesting one, isn't it? For me, it is about what, as you say, it all comes down to your mood at the time. I mean, I always carry a small travel humidor. There's always about 5 or 6 different cigars in there, because I don't know what I want until I literally sit down and I open it up. And then it's like, right, okay, I feel like this cigar, well, with that cigar, I'm going to need this to pair with it.
Yeah.
Or, as you say, someone might have suggested to me, oh, actually, you know what? A lime Coke might work with that.
Yeah.
And honestly, the entire thought of that does upset me, but they have a point. And it's like, there are definitely some cigars out there that would work with that counterbalance.
Yeah.
And as you say, it becomes the thing they fight against almost, which then does give you that experience. You go, actually, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I'll come away from it. But yeah, it is an interesting one. Primarily, I do go for whiskies because I like to end my day.
Yeah.
And it's how I stop. It's like, right, here's 2 hours, half a bottle of whiskey, probably. Maybe not half a bottle if the wife is watching.
Yeah.
But then the cigar hopefully will pair with it and just emphasize everything else. So it brings the sweetness out of the whiskey, and the sweetness of the whiskey brings some of the peppery notes through with the cigar.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I very much like yourself. I think from the spirit side, I'm looking for sugar. I'm looking for that enhancement that I get from sugar. From personally me, it's more rum, I would say. But it always is going to be the sugar. It tends to enhance, the flavors, be it on the darker side of your dark chocolates or your dried fruits or that type. But it also goes and works with the lighter and brings them to life as well. Even the citrus, you get that contrast of the sweet and the citrus, or the sweet and the salty. Yeah. It works with the creamy as well. So I think in general, that's why we find a lot that, pairings in general, you'll find will tend to be whiskey, rums along the mainstream. And then, if you're going to shoot out there and try
I see. So there are definitely a few peated whiskies that do work with cigars.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But they have to be a very good cigar. It's not your everyday sort of production cigars. It is the sort of more limited editions that have had that special blend that they put together for it.
Yeah.
On that note of special blends, do Davidoff have any lines that are coming up that we should be looking out for?
So we have later in the year we have the Chef's Edition. So that's a cigar that's been specially blended for pairing with food and gastronomic experience, and that's done as a launching event where we work with top chefs.
Yeah.
And it's done on a global scale. So there's events all around the world, and it's launched in a big festive dinner, comparing with the cigar style.
Is that going to be available in different sizes, or is it just a Churchill size, or is it?
Unfortunately, this time
They haven't told you.
They haven't told me, and if I knew,
You wouldn't be able to
I
tell
wouldn't
me.
be. Yeah, no.
That's fair enough. I had
it's
to
on the
ask.
calendar, and it's the next big event in the Davidoff calendar. And as I say, that's a global release. Again, we get to work with chefs and their take on how food works. You know, we talked about spirits.
Yeah.
But you know, when you start bringing in, you know, chocolates, sauces, or just straight, you know, crisps, the sorting of crisps,
That's a good
or pretzels, or you know, these type of things, sweets, candies.
Yeah.
The sweetness of that, caramel, the creaminess.
Yeah, the fact that the caramel sits there, which means the smoke stays and actually sticks to your palate a bit more, so it gives you a very different flavour.
Oiliness, olive oil is another one, a big one.
On a fun note, you have any cigar you could pick and anyone you could smoke it with in history. Who, what, and why?
So obviously Davidoff has quite a close tie with Churchill.
Yep.
So the obvious choice would be sit down with the man himself, fantastic orator, storyteller, intellect, and I'm sure we'd have a grand time together. And as I say, the family is still involved with Davidoff. But I think coming back to a little bit that I talked about a while back was this idea of juxtaposition, and I think that really personifies and embodies the brand of Davidoff, this respect of tradition whilst understanding that times change and therefore we need to innovate and go with the times.
Yeah.
And that in a way enhances the tradition. So I would say I would definitely go with more on the arty side. So I would say somebody perhaps like a Salvador Dali, or or more modern, and I'm Bristol based, so a Banksy perhaps. And I feel that they, you know,
you wouldn't know if you actually had the right Banksy mind.
No, true. Yeah. It'd be a group of them, the Banksies. I think, you know, Dali, you get that contrast of the logical and the illogical.
Yeah.
But they work together and one enhances the other, the dream, the real. And I think in the same way that Banksy does, you know, he works on the macro micro, so he deals with, you know, social and political questions, but with everyday themes. And I think that, as I said before, I think that juxtaposition of things that don't necessarily or shouldn't necessarily work together, but put together in the right way, actually enhance each other and respect each other. And what would I smoke? I think probably carrying on that theme of juxtaposition, I would look at any of the Escurio line, the Davidoff Escurio.
Right.
You have that juxtaposition of salty, sweety.
This can be a cigar from any time in Davidoff's history, not just their current.
I like to talk about what I know, what's current to me. Right. Everybody has the exceptional cigar and the limited edition and the rare. What I like finding is the beauty in the everyday, the regular productions, and what can, you know, what you can enhance and what you get out of the norm. I think
that's a very good point. It is about finding it in the, as we were saying, it's in the moment, it's in the here and now. Okay, that's a good answer.
I'd just go on from that because I think, you know, I love doing events, and I think there's a certain amount of the events with retailers and with aficionados where there has to be the special cigar.
Yeah.
I often find that if I could just bring some of the regular production cigars
Yeah.
and sit down and talk and put out, like we said before, a plate of crisps,
Yeah.
some sweets, some olive oil, some chocolates, and take the same cigar and start playing with it, and just really.
That would actually be a really good way of educating a lot of people, because a lot of people always say, I don't understand where you get these flavors from, or I don't know why my palate doesn't pick that up.
Yeah.
But as you say, it's because nobody ever really sits down and does it as a group and has that conversation with other people.
I think taste profiles, they have a place, of course.
Yes.
You know, you need some sort of guidelines, and as we said before, some of those preconceptions either intimidate us,
Yeah.
and we all agree that we found, cream cheese. Of course, there's cream cheese in this. But I also think that, what we talked about, coming back to this idea of self, it's understanding one's palate.
Yeah.
It's understanding a point to be able to find a counterpoint.
Yeah.
And once you start to have those points of reference, you can start to build and understand what your palate likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
So an experience where you dislike a flavor or a cigar, a cheese, a beer, a wine is as positive in your journey
As
understanding what you like. In fact, in some ways,
I would say more so.
More, because you don't want to keep having things you dislike. And if you understand why,
then you'll know that's the sort of stuff you'll avoid in the future. But that said, there are definite drinks I've had, and I've had it with a cigar and gone, that's absolutely amazing. And yet had that same drink on its own and gone, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
So the cigar in that regard, it totally changed something that is unpalatable to very palatable.
Absolutely, and that's again, it's taking the cigar, which is one experience,
the
drink, which is one experience,
and then
in themselves they have a life. Put them together, they open a new door to a new experience.
Yes,
and that's where we come to. That's why pairing is a whole universe which we need to embark on.
Yes,
in order to keep the excitement going, but really to get the most out of it.
Yeah,
you need to understand this.
Yes,
and then this.
And then work where,
exactly.
And find your path, as you say, basically find your path to the route that you want that works for you.
Yeah.
And it is very much a personal path.
It's subjective. That's the beauty of it. The beauty of it. Imagine we all had the same palate.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
It'd be awful. It'd be an awful world.
Yeah. So, changing it slightly, in terms of cigars for a new smoker, what would what are your three? What would you pick as the first three that they should try?
So since joining Davidoff, the Signature 2000, which is a cigar I'm smoking at the moment, for me is the classic cigar.
Right.
This is the cigar that has all those flavors that you imagined a cigar would have before you ever smoked a cigar.
Okay.
It has the creaminess. It has the sort of toasting breadness. It has the nuttiness. It's exactly what you're hoping to get when you start to smoke a cigar. It's a cigar which is approachable for someone who's starting out, be it in the size, length, ringage, blend. It's dependable for the regular smoker. Davidoff never has a bad smoke, or it's incredibly rare.
Don't ever say never. You're now going to get
I never say never, of course not.
You're not going to get played.
It's incredibly rare to have draw problems, I find, with the Davidoff.
I think that's actually a point about production in general with New World cigars as well. Their production does tend to have better quality control than Cubans.
It's the story of Davidoff. Davidoff, as we know, Zino was in partnership with Cuba Tobacco in 1967.
I do remember the old...
You remember that?
I remember the old Cuban Davidoff.
The famous Davidoff Chateau series. And the relationship broke down because of compromise to quality. Zino Davidoff famously said, quality is not a luxury. Quality is what we should always be striving for. And that's why in 1989, the relationship broke down completely, with Davidoff taking all production over to the Dominican Republic, and famously with the legend that's possibly been enhanced over the years of publicly burning 130,000 plus cigars in the streets of Havana as a protest, because of the fact that this compromise in quality. we provide experience to people, pleasurable experiences. If that's being taken away, not because of the reaction of the aficionado to the blend, or it doesn't suit their palate, or for whatever, but because the product is faulty, then we're
then
not.
you'll lose. Then
Absolutely.
you're going to lose them permanently.
Absolutely, and we're not achieving what we're setting out. Our why, you know, and the why of what we do. All the non-Cuban brands realize that we're playing catch up when it comes to the perception of the public of the product. Cuba has the biggest asset of all, is that it's
got its name.
Cigar is related to Cuba.
Exactly it. And you've got Castro, and you've got all of that behind it.
Absolutely. There's the history, there's everything there. The raw, you know, all the seed that's taken and grown elsewhere is Cuban seed. But much like the wine, and I know everybody's heard this 1,000 times, but much like the French wine in the 80s, when they relied on the fact that it's French wine, it's the best, we're just going to keep doing what we do, and it meant that all the New World wines had to look at themselves.
And they did. I mean, they've come in and just basically destroyed it. You still got the very high end,
of course,
but that middle to bottom end has totally changed.
Of course, but it's also forced the French to relook at the basic quality control aspects of the product of the produce that they're working with, and I think that's really key to the advancement as a whole of our industry, and the pleasure, be it retailers have, distributors have, and most importantly, aficionados have from enjoying a cigar.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Michael. I think that pretty much sums up everything we wanted to talk about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
So, there you go. Hopefully that interview was as informative to you as it certainly was to me.
Absolutely. I found it amazing, and I've seen it before because I was actually off camera at the time it was recorded, and I hope you sat and been enthralled by the interesting set of subjects that Michael talked about, because it certainly amazed me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, it still hurts. 130,000 cigars.
Yes, it's an awful lot. 2 million in today's money at cost, without too much effort or thought, without trying to analyse it.
Exactly.
It's a huge bonfire.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. It would have smelled amazing.
Could have been interesting, all those different leaves going up, and all the different quantities. But then if you're in the pursuit of quality...
Well, actually, that's it. I mean, that was an interesting point from Davidoff. I've known Davidoff my entire cigar smoking life because it's synonymous with Britain. Obviously, you've got Churchill and all that sort of reputation. But I wasn't aware just how innovative they've been. And ironically, you're now on your second cigar of the day.
Yes, while you're busy watching that, I managed to finish the first one. And so I decided that we'd actually have a little look at the Zeno, which is also a very mellow cigar. And their little short Robusto would also come in the same area of interest for anybody going to a party or a first-time smoke.
Yeah, I mean...
Quite bland, though.
Yeah, they do have the half Coronas come in that tin, which is pre-cut. That's one of the things we talked about with Michael. And to me, the cigar is the ritual. So I love to cut my cigars and how I like my cigars. Although I do understand, you're taking that away by having it already pre-cut with a punch.
Yes, but then my experience tells me most people then have to buy a cutter.
From that regard, I do understand it, and I do see why they've done it. And it is, it's innovation. They're actually doing innovation, which I think, especially from a Cuban point of view, the Cuban cigars are sadly lacking this. And it's like the quality control issue as well. Very rarely is a New World cigar plugged.
Absolutely, but that's a reflection on the American market, where quite frankly, the Americans, they buy a box of 20 cigars, they want 20 cigars to smoke.
Yeah, whereas if you buy a box of Cuban cigars, which is 25 cigars, you're almost guaranteed, not always, but almost guaranteed at least one of them isn't smoking.
Yeah, but the history I pick up coming into being into retail, so it's like, Cubans are the only ones you're going to smoke. Well, they're the best. They're the only ones. Whatever. Well, if they're your best, you have to be selling 25 cigars, 20 cigars that you can smoke. It's like going to a spirit supplier or a wine thing. You buy a dozen bottles of wine, you want to drink them.
Well, this is
anything less is not acceptable.
Exactly. It's the part of the conversation that Michael mentioned as well about the wine retailers in France, where they had to relearn to do it properly, and they couldn't get away with just phoning it in anymore.
No, and that was something I was very much not involved in, but in my catering career, I literally in that early 80s was very involved in making a wine list for the hotel I was working at. And then later in the 90s, you really weren't buying the French wines because there was so much New World. But when I say New World in wines, you're talking about maybe some Americans, but not on the mass market.
No, it was more the New Zealand and Australia were the big boys then.
So Australia and South Africa, they were the main people who were literally going through. And there were stories going around of Australians being hired by the French areas to be able to uplift their stuff and something that was basically paint stripper, get my teeth in the right place, to something drinkable in comparison to what they were sending over. And that's still the same. There's very little basic French wine now on an English supermarket list or anybody's list. They've all gone up to good regional producers in several areas.
Just changing it slightly, my cigar, I'm almost halfway through this now. It's developed a little bit. There's a lot of black pepper coming through now, so we're getting into the strength of this cigar. There's still a leather note. The coffee note has totally disappeared, even though I'm now still drinking coffee. The coffee note has disappeared, so it has developed.
Yes, and that's an interesting thing about the M81, which I have also smoked. We both smoked a Toro version 2 months ago now. And it was an enjoyable smoke all the way around, and it certainly is testament to not only the decision of the James Hetfield, Roy Dietrich and Jonathan Drew to get his people in the factory to come up with some ideas which eventually ended up being the M81.
Well, they took over 2 years to develop this recipe?
Wouldn't surprise me.
And actually, I have to admit, even if Metallica's name wasn't on this is an amazing cigar in its own right.
Yeah, and there are not that many I can think of.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill Late Hour would be another one.
Yeah, that is a Davidoff that I do really, really like, I have to admit.
That really does pack it in.
Yeah, and the other New World cigar that I really like at the moment is The Leaf by Oscar Valdez, if I have said it right. It's the whole theatre around the fact that it's wrapped in a tobacco leaf.
Another cigar which I first came across 3 years ago, which I actually took on blind because it was interesting because it's wrapped in old tobacco leaf around it, and you actually have to peel that away. It's all biodegradable. Lovely idea.
It. I have friends who have brought those cigars and went, I can't smoke it. And they went, why? It looks terrible. How can you smoke that? You have to unwrap it. Literally, unwrap it, you can smoke it. But people don't necessarily think, because like you said, if they buy it blind, and they just see, it looks very rustic. But it's like, unwrap it.
But it's a lovely one where a lot of thought process has gone in it, probably in line with the rollers and just being involved. And it's a beautiful cigar. Lighter in taste than that one, but a beautifully balanced cigar which you can happily just quietly smoke away. And
I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? It's finding things that are well balanced. And that's a good relationship to spirits. There are, say, peated whiskies that you can drink, but they are incredibly peaty. And yet if you find one that's well balanced, you almost don't notice how peaty it is because it sits very well on your palate.
That's true. I mean, there are one or two whiskies, and you have tasted a couple, which we did several months ago as well, where the normal strength one was quite sharp.
Yeah.
But its cask strength version was a completely different drink.
Yeah. It's amazing how much that actually can change. And it's out the same barrel, it's just how they basically bottle it up and dilute it down to get to the desired strength level they want. And yet that original cask strength is so much more.
Yeah, and they won't necessarily, there's no age statement on the Toro Vague, which is the product we're talking about. So it is a fresh one when it's watered down, and it's on a par. Torre Vegas on the south of Skye, so it's in competition with Talisker,
Yeah.
effectively. Though, actually, it can stand in its own right.
I think it can now. It's definitely over the last 5 years they've changed an awful lot. Some of the stuff they've released like two and a half years ago was probably when I first noticed them, and it was like, oh, there's something special there. They're worth keeping an eye on.
Yes, and I think that's the fun with some of the new spirits distilleries that are coming online, where you've got people moving from place to place and taking their ideas with it. I mean, even in some of the more traditional ones, that's happened. I mean, the classic is Billy Walker, who's famed throughout the Scottish whiskey industry, because he's been in the industry for over 50 years now, and he's currently at Glenallachie.
Now that is a very good distillery.
Yeah. But it has a whole range of different cask versions. He's the person who got that idea going. He started it with Glendronach many years back, came out of that when he sold that part, or the business got sold, and eventually went to Glenallachie, who have taken him on, and it shows.
Oh yeah.
His experience and his passion for creating whiskies that are different, even within the remit of Glenallachie, is amazing.
So just changing it back again, let's bring it back to the interview we just watched. Some of the other interesting points that Michael made was the story behind Plasencia.
Yeah, that's a cigar I don't know anything about, or didn't know anything about. Having you talked about it when we were up at the trade show in May, led me to bring some in. And I think it's very interesting what Michael said about how the family approached things and why not.
Also, the fact that, I mean, I wasn't aware, well, I should have been, but I wasn't aware they were actually making blends for other cigar manufacturers. And it's only in 2017 that they actually decided to do it themselves.
Yes, that's quite remarkable. That is remarkable. But they're not the first. I mean, I think there'll be other factories that make. There are a whole host of different companies out there.
Yeah.
In Nicaragua, there's certainly going to be more than one particular factory making it for maybe one or two suppliers.
Yeah.
Some of the suppliers are factories as well. And you see that in the various ranges that are out there now. And that is one thing that he only hinted on, which we'll certainly come back to, is just how much the Caribbean in particular, but also the rest of the world, how the changes, even in the 20 years I've owned the shop, has changed, and how much average product is out, but how much good quality stuff is now coming through in abundance.
That's something we definitely will be touching a lot on in future episodes, because their range is actually, it's quite an extensive range now, actually, which is good. The other point that Michael did bring up, and I do feel this very much, it's one of the reasons I love my cigars so much, if I'm honest. It's, how to word this without sounding pretentious, it is taking that self-reflection. It's looking after yourself. As a bloke, I don't. If I'm totally honest, I'm a typical Gen X. I don't. You just suck it up and get on with it. But for me, the one thing I've always done, having a cigar makes me stop. It makes me reflect. And I think that's an importance that we're missing.
I think so, and that's the world we live in, and that's the world in the last 30 years has increasingly got more pushy, more money orientated, to the point that everybody's running around like headless chickens, literally, and nobody's got time to stop. They feel they have to go to the gym, they have to do this and they have to do that to keep up, where actually they would be far better either being at home a bit more and spending time with their families, or actually, as some people are now doing, finding that you need to have time where you can switch off, sit there and decompress.
Exactly,
that does so much for your mental state.
It's a lot more. And it is one of those things, when you think about tobacco as a product, we had this conversation the other day, tobacco actually releases chemicals in your brain that actually does help with depression. It slows you down, it makes you calm down.
Yes, but the pressure is from another source who have also got lots of lovely things to give you for that. And
Yeah.
that is a problem in this day and age. And the anti-smoking
Yes, there's a pill for it if you can't do it any other way.
any other way. And I think that's a shame because there are people who are addicted to things or can be made. Do you have that in your DNA, in your personality?
Well, sugar's a great one for an addiction because sugar's in everything we have.
Pretty well. And in lots of the food we eat, it's been added.
Yeah, to make it addictable. Things coming up in the future. Our next episode, we're going to the summertime smoke.
Yeah, that should be fun. We're hoping we'll be able to get a few interviews. Primarily, Rocky Patel comes to mind.
Would be nice.
That would be nice. Oscar, if he comes, as I understand it, they're not sure about that at the moment. That's Oscar Vardalis, who makes the leaf cigars. But we've also got others. There's
George from Foundation Cigars. I particularly quite like the idea of doing George because he's a very unique character in the cigar world in this country. He's got an incredible dress sense, for one, and he's incredibly passionate about cigars. So that actually, to me, will be quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, that should be fun. There's also quite a few other newish suppliers to the English market, and it'll be interesting meeting them.
Yeah, as well as it's also the first sort of UK festival that's actually open not just to the trade, it's also the public.
And that will be fun because we'll be able to listen into what the public think about some cigars and maybe even talk to us.
Yeah.
Which could be also be quite good fun.
If you are there, and you do see us, do say hello. We will bite, I promise. No, we probably won't bite. But yeah, do come and say hello. On that, I think we're both very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's lots to look forward to. We've got lots of things from Michael's things that we're going to work out when we're going to bring them in.
Yeah, we're going to come back and do some extra bits. Thanks to Michael's interview, he's given us some good ideas there, which is nice. On that note, if there are any ideas or subjects that you want us to talk about or discuss while we do these podcasts, do drop a comment and let us know. Also, the usual like and subscribe and whatever. You'll see us on all social platforms, I think. That's where we're planning on going. Whilst we wrap this up, because I'm almost at the end of my cigar, how are you finding that Zeno? Because you've gone through that very quickly.
It's not tightly wrapped in the sense that it's a little bit loose. It's very mellow, slightly creamy. It's fine in the shorter version for those non-smokers. I would think yes, it makes a good morning smoke. But it's
an early day smoke, isn't it? It's not your going out on a Saturday night smoke with your friends at the pub. It's
no, most drinks at that point would overshadow this. That's quite certain. The Sheraton would just about make it.
Yeah.
But as we briefly mentioned on later, your palate has changed, so you need something slightly stronger. It might only be a light medium, and there's quite a lot of those out there. It's quite creamy in a sense. I'm not quite sure what the wrapper is. We'll have to go and check the book later on. But it is a Davidoff, and their traditional ones are light cigars.
Yeah.
It's only when you have in Davidoff themselves the Millennium range or the Anniverso range that they get slightly stronger. The main other one is the Winston Churchill range, which is a medium cigar.
And that's actually changed quite a lot, funny enough, because the original recipe for that Winston Churchill, I didn't like. But the current recipe they're using actually is really quite pleasant.
I agree with you. The previous incarnation of Winston Churchill was disappointing. The current range is much more acceptable. The Robusto version of Winston Churchill is go through, and then you have that develop into what the later, of which they also have a very small version of it, which is a nice little end of evening.
That's to me, that's almost the equivalent of having a D6, the old Partagas D6 in the end of the evening, but at a third of the price. So I'm almost on, as you can see, I'm on the last third, just into that last third of my blackened cigar. It has really become quite a full cigar now, which is nice. That's what you want. You want that journey. And I do think New World cigars are beginning to get that now. They never used to. For me, New Worlds were always, what you start is where you finish. I think cigars like the Blackened and the Oscar have definitely changed the rules there, which I think is amazingly good.
I think in case of both those suppliers, they've picked up that people want a quality smoke. It's not about just churning out cigars of even an average good quality smoke which is smokable, but there are plenty of aficionados and other people who, even not aficionados, but will smoke now and again, but they want to smoke something decent.
That is the point of the cigars, isn't it? This whole episode is all about the enjoyment of what we do with cigars. And on that note, we've come to the end of the first episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. I know I've enjoyed doing this, actually, very much so.
And so have I. And we shall finish these cigars off screen.
Indeed.
Until the next time.
Yes.
See you then.
See you on the next episode.